Hi, I'm Lucy Arnez. My latest album is I Got the Job, songs from my musical past, live at the Purple Room. And you're listening to U.S. Modernist Radio.
Mama don't allow no architecture around here. Mama don't allow no architecture around here. Oh, I don't care what Mama don't allow, gonna draw mine modern anyhow. Mama don't allow no architecture around here.
Welcome to U.S. Modernist Radio, where we talk and laugh with people who enjoy, own, create, dream about, preserve, love, and hate modernist architecture, the most exciting and controversial buildings in the world. I'm Tom Guild, and today we're going coast to coast. Our first stop is a visit with someone who's been rocking the California architecture scene for over 60 years, Malibu architect Ed Niles. Then we head over 3,000 miles and down 500 to Florida with tropical architect Ralph Choeff. Later we go back out west and meet one of the stars of the Purple Room in Palm Springs, California, musical guest Chris Bennett. And now, here's your host, Mr. Modernism, George Smart.
Thanks, Tom. Living on the water, or at least near the water, can be a dream come true. Waking up to the gentle lapping of waves, the salty air, and the views has never been more popular, despite global warming's rising tides and the wildly exorbitant cost of flood insurance. Then there are the hurricanes. For most of America, the coastal house experience is a seasonal thing, but for California and Florida, comfortable year-round living is the norm. Architects like our guest today have a special challenge battling water, a multi-front war keeping it from bubbling up, storming in, or drifting over. I'm amazed that so many structures on the North Carolina coast from the 40s and 50s are even still standing. They outlasted hurricanes, seagulls, torrential rains, and developers looking to build resorts. Nothing, however, is harder on the coast than getting approvals. In Malibu, for example, getting a building permit can take years, if at all, as neighbors will protest just about anything new. And there are environmental reviews, too, and an architectural review board, probably. But despite these challenges, living on the water can be a truly rewarding experience. Just remember to pack your sense of humor, your checkbook, and a lot of patience. And if you ever need a break from sea life, there's always a cabin in the woods with the snakes and the bears. U.S. Modernist Radio is underwritten by June Goldfinger and Jeff Taylor, sponsors of Circle, Square, Triangle, a traveling exhibition on the architecture of Myron Goldfinger, and by Diane Bald and the Budman family, restoring significant architecture in Toronto, Los Angeles, Malibu, and Palm Springs.
We all know Barbie. She's the fashion icon and the owner of a dream house. Where? In Malibu, of course. She's had that house for a long time, so who's she going to turn to for the next one? Barbie would need to look no further than Ed Niles, the Malibu-based architect known for his innovative, daring, award-winning designs. Ed Niles is a master of modern architecture, blending sleek lines, organic forms, and jaw-dropping geometries into his creations. His work is as bold and glamorous as Barbie herself. Imagine Barbie's dream house designed by Niles, a glass-walled mansion perched atop a cliff with flowing curves and unexpected details and probably not a smidgen of pink. The king of Malibu modernism, Niles graduated in 1961 from USC.
Go Trojans!
And he interned with Quincy Jones,
The architect, not the musician.
Carl Maston, and Craig Elwood. With 7 decades of practice, Ed started his office in 1967 and taught for 30 years at USC. For 4 years, around 1990, he had coffee regularly with the great John Lautner. And that's how George's conversation with Ed Niles begins.
Ed, before we start talking about your life and career, which is extensive and fascinating, let's talk about your coffee time with John Lautner. You were, for years, meeting him for coffee and chatting about architecture. What was all that like?
Well, he was, as I expected, a very insightful person. But the ultimate end of what he said to me, just remember, less than 2% of the public you deal with will really understand what you're doing or able to discuss what you're doing. or intellectually be able to understand it. And so, we both agreed on that. And that was something that I think was a vehicle for both of us to continue talking. It was very interesting. As I told you before, I met him on the pier at Paradise Cove. I would run down there every morning from my house, from my little steel cube we lived in for the kids. And I'd run down there for exercise, and there he was. He was doing the big concrete house for the family. I forget their name, but the point was he would be down there. I would see him about once a month, if not more. And then we would talk, and he was not only informative beyond what I thought, but we talked about things that I thought were, from my perspective, were very important and had more to do, not so much with architecture, but with more of how do you approach the work? How do you deal with clients? When not to deal with clients, things of that nature, which I was young enough at that time not to be a smart ass and want to argue with it. Shut my mouth and let it all come in. And I hate to admit it. I don't hate to admit it. I think that he was 100% right. I mean, I'm going through things right now with some clients that are, they all think they're architects. They all think they're contractors. Well, it's typical for anybody who's creative, whether it's Michelangelo on his back doing the Sistine Chapel and the Pope, or whatever it is, whether you like the art or you don't like it, or like the art of architecture, you don't like it. Human beings are pretty much that way. They have to comment, criticize. And that is something that he had gotten over as far as I was concerned. And I think that was a great lesson for me.
I remember that his great quote was that all his clients were either tortured geniuses or wealthy bastards, something along those lines.
Probably both. He was like myself, and I have to say this in all sincerity, like myself, we've both gotten away with things.
Yeah.
We've got a client to move from X over to Z, some cases from A to Z, some cases maybe we got past M. It's just, it's how far you move them. It's a process of education. That's why the ultimate role of an architect is an educator if they're going to deal on any subject. It's not that they would know what a basketball stadium is for. It's what is its role in life, and what is its role on a 24-hour span of time, like anything. Most of my clients never even thought about the house at nighttime. There's a whole kind of thing. But like I started to say, I think both of us were very, very lucky people. And I feel myself very lucky to have had clients that I've gotten away with, that worked things out with me over time, whether it be commercial or whether it be residential, primarily in residential experimentation. Like in his case, I asked him what kind of clients would have, where we would catalog, or where would you place them? He said most of them were people that had a lot of money from the beginning, like from their young life. They were able to come to money and knew what was not right and wrong, but knew that they hadn't reached a point in time, that they really hadn't come to the solution. So they wanted more.
Yes.
I walk into a store and I say, there's that pair of pants I want. Well, that's not what he likes, and that's not what I like. I want him to say, I want a pair of pants, but what do they like? What are they for? How do you wear them? What is the pattern, the texture, or what is the shape? What is the object? So on. So it's people that want more than what they've had. So oftentimes you meet people that have had a lot already, and that's the kind of client he had, as far as I was concerned. I'm sure there are many others.
I first discovered you, Ed, in a magazine called GA Houses, where you first appeared in issue number 18. It's published in Japan. It's not widely circulated in the United States except among architects. And you were one of the superstars of that era, along with a few others, and didn't appear so much in U.S. magazines.
Mm-hmm.
Since then, I've just come to be fascinated with your 60-plus years of work, which all our listeners can be looking at right now at usmodernist.org/Niles. So how did you first come to be published in GA Houses? What was that one for?
Why it happened, I can't quite remember, but there was a gentleman, a photographer in particular, that they have. I wish I could remember his name right now. Japanese of descent, but American educated. and he had seen some publications of my work in Los Angeles. He came to the office, and that started it. And he photographed probably 20 of my homes over time. Excellent photographer. He's probably one of the best that I've ever experienced. He does what an architect sees. Let's put it that way. His name is in the book. He was one of the owners of GA at some point in time. But they came to me every year or every time they were publishing, they came to me and they either asked for more photographs of work I was doing at that time, or there were quite a few publications that were drawings. My daughter, Lisa, who's an architect, did a lot of the Axon drawings in the publications that you see. So that's really how it came about. And then at one point in time, I had the opportunity to go with a client to Japan. And I went to their main office or publication office. And that was an experience itself, because I had tags on me in Japanese as to how to get me back to the hotel. Okay. And they were as usual, very, very polite. And it was just after the Olympics. So there was a real connection between them, communicating back and forth. And then the fellow that was really leading it in the States sort of went away. He dissolved. I'm not sure what happened to him. I think he ended up on the East Coast. But as far as the U.S. publications are concerned, I never took the time to issue or to enter publications or enter competitions. Okay, like the standard AIA thing, you throw everything in there, you pay the money, you throw the competition in, and they've got some jury that they unfold and the pages out somewhere. Okay. Never was enthused with that, is that I disagree with it. I just didn't want to spend the time doing it. And the great one was when I did the Sidley House. That's the one that's lighted. It's the one that all cantilevered steel, and we move all the modules around and everything else. I submitted that finally to the American Institute of Architects, and we got a letter back that said, we didn't ask for models, we asked for buildings. They thought the photographs was a model. 5 minutes, they come back and they go, oh my God, please submit the thing, we will give you this. So I didn't do it. I wasn't insulted. He was. But it was just interesting how things go. Yeah.
Your houses are really futuristic. I mean, it doesn't look like 2020 or 2060. It's like 2150. I mean, they're just really way ahead.
Well, like any other architect, I assume that's a real compliment.
Yes.
Like I've got one house that you showed a photograph of that really upset me. Not because you did it. It's because the furniture was put in the Langman house. Who in God's name is going to put the George XIV furniture in the house? Okay. That was just horrible. And I remember the client was one of these attorney types that he wasn't a client of mine. He bought the house from people that I really, really appreciate, the Langmans. And she was an artist and everything else. And they bought it. And then all of a sudden one day he said, well, come over and see what we're doing. I go over there and here's the Pacific Ocean, like right in front of you. And he's got all the furniture turned the opposite way. And the decorator says, oh, well, you can always look at the ocean, but you can't look at the parking lot drive or something. I said, what in the hell are you talking? And I just got up and left. But it is, when you do a residence, it's like having children. It's pretty hard to let go.
Yeah.
You don't want to see it sometimes. I've had stuff destroyed. You wouldn't believe how beautiful it was, and the workmanship and everything just destroyed by real estate people. Just unbelievable.
Well, you've lost some houses, I believe, that have been demolished.
Yeah, 2 of them, 3 of them actually. But they're demolished because people just, they wanted a bigger house, so they just come in and wipe it out. It's Malibu. What are we going to do?
Right.
Parasites, and I hate to say it this way, but since I have the opportunity, I'm going to say the parasites of architecture are the real estate agents. They're totally uneducated. They should have to go to school in architecture. They allow things to be destroyed that you can't believe. It's like, is there a real estate agent for sculpture or for art? Yeah, they're brokers, right?
Right.
But they're not the same. The viciousness and the degradation that they write up on things to sell things is just overwhelming, especially in this community. here, especially in Malibu. The billionaires beach and all this kind of stuff, Anyway, so I guess I had to get it off my chest, and you were the vehicle.
Okay. Now, Ed, you came out of USC in 1961, and then over the next couple of years, worked for some really great architects. You worked for Quincy Jones, you worked for Carl Maston, you worked for Craig Elwood, who's been getting a lot of press still lately. What was all that like?
I worked for Craig before I was out of college.
Okay.
I knew him quite well. And then went to Carl Maston, went back again after I was licensed. Craig wanted me to come back after I was licensed, but that didn't work out. So Carl Maston had some great work. We would do things that were just outlandish and maybe get 2% of it built. And that was good. A. Quincy Jones was a genius. A. Quincy Jones was a brilliant guy. You would sit at the table with him, and the ideas would just flow right out of his hands. I mean, he's just unreal person. I worked for him for a short period of time, but I couldn't stand the big office. I never did. The politics to me are a massive waste of time. So 1967, I finally went out on my own. And I've been lucky since that time.
Yeah, that's a really long stretch, Ed, and you're still turning them out.
Well, I'm still turning them out. I don't think we've been married. My wife is the stalwart of my life. We've been married for 67 years.
That's a long time. Congratulations.
I was a football star and she was the cheerleader, just out of the comic books.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. And she knew what architecture was. Her dad was a contractor. But anyway, so this worked out pretty good. She wants me to sort of slow up because I get too excited about things. I've been told before that the highest divorce rate among professions is architects. And I can believe, you work night and day and not a lot of money. So it's hard. I think for remaining married is a very difficult thing. I don't think there's one architect that I personally know that has remained married. Okay. They've all gone through these periods of alternate selection.
That's a great euphemism, Ed. Well done. Alternate selection. Okay. I'm going to jot that down. Let's talk about one of your houses which achieved a level of notoriety. You designed around 1978 a house for Dorn and Carla Schmidt, which famously got bought in the 80s by Johnny Carson. And you worked with him on a remodel, right?
It was a lot with him over a period of nearly 5 years. It wasn't so much a remodel. It was the main house itself remained 90%.
Okay.
Don't believe any of the photographs you see of the house from the people that bought it after, because that was the worst furniture in the world again. But the point was that the story has a backup that really made sense. The original clients of mine, great guy, the Schmidt family, he was a nuclear scientist originally, graduated from Berkeley in nuclear science. So we had a great time designing the house. I said, let's put a forest inside. He said, okay, let's do this, do that. Why a forest inside? They had been married in Hawaii, and they like that feeling. And you can get very corny about that, but my idea was just to make this a place you come to that had a life in itself, where there were living things other than humans or dogs, but other than humans. So these trees, the ficus rubber trees, were developed inside. So natural light is very important. So the house took about 3.5 years to build. Bottom line was he lived in the house for only 2 years. At the end of the second year, he gets a call from a real estate agent that says Johnny Carson's looking for a house. The owner, Schmidt, calls me on a Friday night. I'll never forget it as long as I live. My wife picks up the phone and says, he was all nervous. He don't believe this. Johnny Carson wants to pay me $9.5 million for the house. Well, $9.5 million back in '84 was like,
a fortune.
$50 million.
Yeah.
So I get on the phone with Norton. He's nervous. He says, what am I going to do? I got trouble. He's got to move in here by Tuesday. This is Friday night. So I go over. We spent all night at the house helping to move stuff out. We had a wine room underneath. We're pulling all the wine out. I must have had 300 bottles of wine. We're pulling it all out. Of course, we're having some. And the whole thing cleared out the house completely. Carson moves in. Wednesday morning, I get a call from him. Got to come over. Great guy, by the way. Unbelievable person. I go over there, and we just started laughing. He wanted to hear the stories about the house. I told him this and that. big hurricane that hit it, everything else. Then I did the tennis facility for him across the street. That was very, very interesting because he played tennis just about every morning of the week, and I'd be over there doing not just a tennis court. It was sunken, a professional court, but also we had 2 guest rooms. We had a library, all done in steel, concrete, and stone. And in the middle was a big gallery. And in that gallery were all the pictures of all the presidents and people he had met over the years.
Yeah.
He said after he come to Los Angeles. So the next 5 years, we're building that, putting it all together. He's moving stuff in and everything else. And then the last time I talked to him, he was on a boat up in Alaska. Serengeti is the name of the boat. It's a ship. And so I talked to him, and the next time I heard he was dead. But the house itself was really quite elegant. Kept things very simple. He had birds. He had cameras shooting through the glass of nests. I mean, this is the kind of guy you're dealing with. Then these other people bought the house. I'm not going to mention their name. They bought the house and had absolutely no idea, except they utilized his name in terms of the purchase. They threw in all this, what can I say, what the upper crust feels is art and design as far as furnishings are concerned. And then they did some things. They turned the gallery into a gym room and never played tennis. She wanted to tear the tennis court out. I said, what are you doing? It's crazy. Move some big tubs in there with trees, but don't tear it out. Well, eventually, since that time, nothing's really happened to the house since that. They sold it one more time, and I don't know what the status of that has been. And I know that they've hired other architects to try to work on it, and they don't understand it structurally at all. But anyway, what other house do you want to know about?
Ed, we were talking earlier about houses of yours that have been destroyed, and unfortunately there's a very nice one that is still going in Vail, Colorado, the Tenenbaum House, which is this series of glass cubes stacked on top of each other. How did that one come about?
Well, number one, the site, I can't remember the name of the mountain range. The site itself was a sloping site, substantial slope from the road down. And then when you were on the site, you would see this entire mountain range in front of you. The city itself was in front of you also, but way down in the valley. The Tenenbaums had done a home for them prior to that on the beach in Malibu for him. This place is really done for his wife. That was a somewhat new wife, we'll call it. But the bottom line is that the idea behind the house was to have a series of spaces that, regardless of where you were, in the wintertime, you would read the snow as becoming part of the architecture. So it wasn't just a hard lid with a hat, the ceilings, the roof, and it was all done with hydronic heating. That is, heating with a liquefied material. It was a boiler with heat that was run through pipes through all of the skylight systems and heating and fan and all the glass. So the thing became a giant, call it a lantern if you want to. I'm looking at it right now on my wall behind me. Giant lantern at nighttime. But the real key behind it, again, was to live with winter, because that's when they were there most of the time. Live with winter in the sense that you were aware of nature in terms of the environment, in terms of the change of nature. The trees themselves are deciduous. And then the snow would come down. So you're reading the snow as if you're out in it, but protected from the obvious cold and wetness. So that was really part of the idea. The design of it, how it was built, everything else was basically the cubistic idea, was because they're trying to stack it vertically within certain areas so that you didn't lose the view of all this by having something in front of you. So you had stair systems that went through. We never had an elevator, but a stair system that went through. So there was a whole master level, and then guest rooms, and then outdoor spaces. But the main thing was that they sold it in 2018, and whoever lived there, the family enjoyed it for all this period of time. And then they just sold it, is what I understood, because I got a call, do you have the plans? And they found it.
Oh, great. And the house of yours, Ed, that's the biggest Instagram star, is the second house you did for Milton Sidley in Winding Way, which looks like something, I don't know, it's like a turbine or a ship from outer space, but it gets so many comments all the time. And when people repost it, which they do frequently, it gets discovered by a whole new group of 10,000 people.
Well, that's the house, by the way, that we had submitted. I had submitted photographs of that house to the American Institute of Architects.
Oh, that was the one. Yeah.
He said we don't take models. I had done a really nice little house with the Sidleys prior to that. And I don't think I sent you the photographs of it. His son owns it now. But this house was the second house for Sidley. And he liked to buy art, and he liked to buy all this stuff we had on the back court. And he was the perfect client in the sense that he knew me quite well. He said, I want to do this thing. I want a special. I want my big room for music. My wife can't stand it. I'll stick her up here. Anyway, the long and short is that it did evolve into all these separate spaces. And the great part about it is technically it evolved into a very energy efficient structure, way beyond what is assumed to be energy efficient today. It rises, it's above the ground in all cases. In fact, we have a seismic fault running through this area, so we had to skip a portion of the site and lift it up. But the fact of the matter is, like an airplane, all the piping, all the infrastructure that supports the house, the heating, the air conditioning, the plumbing, everything is accessible underneath the house by panels dropping away. The upper part, and this is something I've designed, that idea I've designed before, but this is where I was able to actually get it built.
It's really fascinating. I just love it. And I know that people are finding it all the time as people repost it on Instagram. Ed, you are clearly a young man with a bright future. What's on your bucket list to do next?
Well, my bucket list to do next is to spend more time with my wife. We traveled a lot in terms of architecture, going to see Europe, places. I've got to get back to Europe. So I'm going to spend more time. What's happening in Paris is just, I don't know if it's good or bad. Not Frank Gehry stuff, I love it. But it's just all the construction that's going on in the new part of town, Paris, and everything else. And then also other areas of the world. But we like to travel, and that's probably what I'll be spending a lot of time on. There's a couple houses that I've designed that are, we're on our fourth year going through the California Coastal Commission in the city of Malibu. So it gives you an idea of what goes on around here. You don't design them and they go up in 3 months. No developer is going to come to me because there's a translation that's necessary into profit. And I'm not sure whether or not what I would do for housing would necessarily translate into a profit structure. Yeah, but I build it myself. And I built 2 office buildings for myself, too, by the way. I've been involved in construction. I've had to build for clients at least 4 houses because of the difficulty in interpretation. And one of them was the second Sidley house, also the Langman house, also the Weston house, go on and on. But the other houses that have been demolished, the one in the book that I sent you, in the forward part of the book, right at the very beginning, this house that extensively added to, done by an architect, German architect, that had a house that was 1,000 square foot. His kids lived on it. Can't remember right now. I think it's in the book. That got destroyed by a realtor here in Malibu to build a big piece of Georgian junk. Total craftsman, beautiful stainless steel work inside, everything. And I was very upset with that realtor. He sold it out. He made the deal with some character from Chicago. Here's a piece of property in Malibu right on a bluff. Why don't you build something, 6, 7, 8, 10,000 square feet? They just came and wiped the whole thing off.
Ed, thank you so much for talking with me. This has been a real pleasure, and I can't wait to see what you come up with next. I hope that the AIA wakes up a little bit and realizes that your submissions are actual buildings.
Well, listen, let me tell you, I have a lot of respect for you people. It is my daughter Lisa just went through the roof. She saw that letter. She said, God almighty, how could, that was the first letter. Then we got the second one 2 years later, a year later. Oh, we're sorry, we didn't realize it was real, that kind of thing. And they had it was so funny because the house was first shown in an ad for selling, it was like not Porsche, but somebody else like that, Bugatti or something. And then it was just in the ad with a new truck that, what do you call it, Mr. Big.
Tesla? Cybertruck?
Yeah. Tesla the truck. Yeah.
Oh, great.
With a big shovel it in the court and the whole thing. So I get this call from my friends back east, right? Guy with colleagues with me. He says, "What in the hell are you doing?" So everybody has a pretty good sense of humor on the whole thing. So I have no problems with it.
Thanks for talking with me, Ed.
Well, listen, let me tell you, I have a lot of respect for you people.
That was my interview with Malibu architect Ed Niles.
In 1978, New York native Ralph Choeff earned his B.Arch at Pratt and moved to Miami 2 weeks later. By 1983, he had opened his own practice, now Choeff Levy Fishman Architecture and Design, a leading purveyor of tropical modernism, which sounds like a great thing to purvey. Who likes tropical modernism? Pretty much everyone, including Ralph's clients, Cher, Matt Damon, A-Rod, and many more. In addition to houses, Choeff and his partners also design luxury hotels like the Mondrian South Beach and Anglers. Welcome, Ralph.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Okay, Ralph, our ACE research team has gone back in time and we discovered that at Canarsie High, class of 1974, you were voted class jester with Irene Rice. What did you do to earn that, Ralph?
Well, where is Irene today?
How the hell did you get that information?
They always say that.
Well, I was actually on vacation in Miami, where I currently live, and I come back to New York and I find out that I win the senior celebrity class jester. I said, what the hell did I do to deserve that? Exactly what you said, but I guess I was, and the rest is history.
Were you just very funny in class?
Yeah, I have a penchant for coming up with one-liners and being funny. Not in class as much as just with friends. That's all.
Okay.
So you're quick.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
Okay.
And your family actually originates from Cuba. Tell me about that.
Yes, I was born in Cuba. My parents were born in Cuba as well, but my grandparents are from Europe and Istanbul, Turkey as well. We had to leave Cuba, of course, due to Castro. We moved to Israel for about a year and a half, 2 years, and then we came to the United States. I grew up in Brooklyn, in Canarsie, and that's where I got most of my education. But I also went to college in Brooklyn at Pratt Institute.
Do you remember anything about Cuba or Israel?
I actually do. I remember in Cuba, just going to the parks, my grandmother taking me on the bus to different places. My memory is limited there. Israel, I remember more. We lived in what they call a moshav, and that's a community kind of infrastructure where you live. We were in charge of the chickens and the chicken farm, and my father served in the military in Israel. It was not easy. As a child growing up, there were not good times for me. And then we came to the United States, to New York City, and I was there from the 5th grade on through college.
In New York, Ralph, what were some of the buildings that captured your imagination in high school?
Well, going to Pratt Institute and studying architecture in New York, I had the luxury of living in an area where buildings that we studied are built. You could actually go to them anytime you want. So being into mid-century modern at the time, and still am into mid-century modern, the Lever House, the Seagram building. So one's by Skidmore, Owings and Merrill, and the other one's by Mies van der Rohe. That was finished by Philip Johnson. Those were the types of buildings that I grew up admiring.
How did you make the transition to want to work in Miami in a more tropical area? Because certainly Brooklyn is not known for its tropical winds.
No, it's not. First of all, I hate winter. So I hate cold weather. I just hate cold weather. But the New York I grew up in is not the same New York as it is now, kind of. It was a bankrupt city. It was crime-ridden. It was dirty. And it was cold in the winter. And although I loved my experience at college, it just was amazing. I just couldn't wait to move out. And I wanted to move out to a warmer climate. So it was between Los Angeles and Miami. And in Miami, I had some family and friends. So I decided I moved here. And when I moved to Miami, it was really a worn horse town. It's not the Miami that it is today. I got into tropical modern architecture slowly while living in Miami, because I was mostly into modernism at the time. And tropical modern really takes modernism or mid-century modern architecture. You add some more materials and you can have a house that not only invites the indoor out, because if you know the basis of mid-century modern, it's really to connect more with nature. Now with the technologies we have this vast sliding glass doors that we can have 40-foot openings and let the outside come inside. And with the materials that we can have these days, we can warm up the architecture a bit. A good example, a good old example of that would be the Kaufman residence in Palm Springs by Richard Neutra.
Oh, sure. I know that house.
Mm-hmm.
Been there several times.
Yes, I have been there.
When did you start producing these houses in Miami?
It's funny because when I first started my practice, you do anything that you can get. Really wasn't what I really wanted to do. There were these, what we call bocatecture. There were these Mediterranean homes that really weren't Mediterranean. They were mostly like Boca Raton homes that try to simulate modern architecture. And that's what people wanted. And that's what I had to do. And I finally got a big break. I had a developer that wanted me to design a modern home for him at Miami Beach. I did that. And basically that's where it all started. I went from modernism, basically, or mid-century modern, to tropical modern, which is a mix of mid-century modern and using materials which are found in the areas that you work in and used in the architecture themselves. So I became kind of typecast. I used to do shopping centers and office buildings and you name it, but then I became typecast as this architect that does tropical modern architecture. And you know what? It's been fabulous. It's been great. Love the transition. Love what I do. I've been blessed to meet many people that would blow your mind and have them as clients as well. So thank goodness for tropical modern architecture. Not only do I love doing it, but it's helped me in my life.
Now, you've worked with a lot of celebrities and putting their houses together. How is that different from working with non-celebrity homeowners? What are the things you have to do special for those people?
Give them a good price.
Okay.
They believe since they're celebrities, they can get a good price. And you give them a better fee because you do want to be connected with them. It helps in your business. But I find that the celebrity is maybe a little less discretionary than the CEO that might want very specific things in their homes. Celebrities want specific things, yes, but they are, how can I say it? They're more accepting of what your designs are. They don't make you change constantly, where a lot of clients ask you to change things constantly because they want to see other solutions.
Yeah.
The celebrities, they're pretty easygoing when it comes to that type of relationship as an architect-client relationship.
So CEOs are a pain, huh?
No, no, they're not a pain.
Okay.
But, hey, listen, it's funny that the average person, and I don't know why we call them the average person, but that's not a CEO or a celebrity, but they come from money. They actually make you change the architecture more than if it was a CEO or a celebrity. They want to see different solutions. And for the most part, many times the architecture comes out better.
Yeah.
You just got to listen to your clients. You can't be so egocentric that you don't listen to your clients, what they have to say, what they want to do. And eventually you come up with an award-winning product there when you combine. So the trick is not to be so egocentric as to tell and dictate to your clients what they're going to have.
Now, there are two trends you have talked about lately. One I'm familiar with, the conversation pit, and the other something called the sleep divorce. What is that?
What?
The sleep divorce. Well, turns out many couples don't like to sleep with each other in the same room, and more than you think. And it's not because they hate each other. It's because of habits.
Snoring.
Snoring is the biggest.
Mm-hmm.
I know that I personally can't stand anybody that snores. So I would have to leave the room myself. So what we do is we design a master bedroom, and then we design a mini master bedroom. And of course, the husband always gets the mini master
The
bedroom,
mini me.
and the
Of
wife
course.
gets the master bedroom.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that's the crux of it. That's why we call them divorce sleeping rooms. What I don't recall what you called it, but
They're not divorced.
No,
They're
no,
just,
no.
they're not. No. They love each other. Trust me.
They're just trying to get a good night's sleep.
These are very warm, loving couples. It's just, it's important to get a good night's sleep, and now they can sleep comfortably.
Then they're not cranky and they'll get along.
Right. And when you say conversation pit, they're not really conversation pits. They're outdoor fire pits. They're like a conversation pit outdoors. And now these days, we put them in the middle of swimming pools. So you're surrounded by water. You're walking, it seems like you're walking over water to get in. When you sit down, the water is at shoulder level. And there's a conversation pit with a fire pit. You could go in cooler weather.
Wait a second. These are inside
Miami,
pools?
Yeah, these are inside pools.
Wow.
Okay, where's the fire pit in relation to the pool? Is it in the pool?
No, the fire pit itself is in the sunken lounge, which is in the pool. And actually, if you go on my website, you could actually see a few homes with them.
Okay.
Tell us your website, Ralph.
It's clfarchitects.com. That's C as in cat, L as in Larry, F as in Frank. Architects is plural with an S at the end.com.
Well, I am definitely going to go see that. I want that in my next house.
So do I.
A conversation pit, pool, and fire pit combination. That is pretty cool.
It is very cool. It's great when my clients have opening parties and you go and other people come see the house and they marvel at that. Very cool feeling to have.
So even in some of the upscale homes around Miami, there's still a premium on parking. So when someone who commissions one of these houses wants to have a party, what do they do? Where do they put the cars? Like, especially on some of these little island communities.
Well, tell you, we just designed a residence on Star Island on Miami Beach that has a 15-car, we call it car museum. And as you're walking toward the house, the car museum, which it also is the garage, has a video wall behind it that is a background to all these collector cars that the owner has. And we have a portion of the garage that feels like it's inside the residence itself, although it's not, for one car that is on a turntable as a display. And where do we keep all these cars? Well, sometimes we double the size of the garage by having lifts. So you have one car stacked on another.
Oh, yeah.
The other is just motor courts, but the rest is good luck.
Now, all those auto shows in Detroit back in the 60s, there would be a pretty girl standing next to the car as it went around the turntable. Is that part of this deal?
Nah. No, unless they want to.
Okay.
I will tell you this. Miami is a different animal. So I wouldn't put it past anyone to have a party with a house like that and have these beautiful girls, 15, one for each car, just there for show when people walk in. I would not put it past anyone in Miami.
When I think of car turntables, I think of Batman, right?
Oh, right.
Because the Batcave had that famous
It's
turntable
exactly the same thing.
that would turn the car around.
So it could fly out the
cave.
Yeah.
It's exactly the same thing.
Your firm has a major project now in Panama City. What is that one?
It's a single-family residence in an island that is just off downtown. You get to it with a bridge. You have beautiful views of not only the ocean, but of downtown Panama. So it's a typical tropical modern home like you would find here, but it's in Panama.
Okay, so this is not Panama City in Florida. This is Panama City
it's Panama.
in the country of Panama.
It's the country of Panama, correct.
Also, Tampa seems to be a big spot for you these days.
Yes, we just finished a house for one of the ex-owners of the Washington Redskins. But he was one of the good ex-owners, not the bad guy. Super nice couple. And then through that house, we've gotten 3 other homes in Tampa, most of them in an area called Davis Island, right on the water. And we've also are doing homes in Sarasota. which is close to Tampa, about 40 miles from
yeah.
Tampa. But it's an upscale area, also on the ocean. And we've opened up a satellite office in Tampa.
Sarasota is famous for its mid-century modern houses. We've had many guests on the show talking about that area.
Correct. I believe Frank Lloyd Wright has a couple of pieces of architecture there. Talk about mid-century modern architects.
I will have to look that up. I know that was a big site for Paul Rudolph, for instance. He did homes there in the 50s before he left for New York.
Right. You know, it's funny because going to Pratt in the mid-70s gave me the opportunity to study architects like Paul Rudolph and Mies van der Rohe and Philip Johnson and John Johansson. Unlike today, where, I mean, you have great architects that are up and coming, like Morphosis and Bjarke Ingels and Rem Koolhaas. We're actually working on a house right now with Rem.
Really? Where is that?
In Miami Beach. And it's actually Miami, but the address is a Miami Beach address. It's going to be a great house. It's very, very cool looking.
Does anybody ever come to you and say, like, hey, Ralph, I got $1.2 million. What can you do for me?
Construct something for $1.2 million?
Yeah.
I could send them to an architect just starting out.
Okay.
Our homes they start at about $1,000 a square foot. We've done them as high as $2,500 a square foot, depending on the budget. We can work at people's budget. But to do a house for $1 million at 1,000 square foot or $800 a square foot, you know, you can get 1,000 square foot.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Right. And so how big are your houses
so that's,
typically?
They started about, right? I mean, we could do them any size, but they started about 3,700 square feet. We just finished one that's 30,000. We're working on two that are 20,000.
Well, we're going to have to add you to our pantheon of modernist architects, Ralph, because you're doing some impressive work here.
I appreciate it. Yes, you know, I've been very blessed. You know, everybody needs their big break. You have great architects that got their big break because they were very good and they got a break. But then you have some really great architects that never got their big break, and you never hear of them. You also have some architects that aren't so good and did get a big break, and you hear of them and you go, well, what's so special about their architecture? But I've been very fortunate. I've used my talents and made the most of getting that big break that has afforded me to have and do architecture that I really, truly love.
Well, Ralph, we certainly hope that you feel better and recover quickly from all this. And thank you so much for coming on.
I apologize for the raspy voice.
Oh, you sound like Brooklyn.
Yeah.
I didn't mean to.
Thanks so much for coming on the show with us, Ralph.
Thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
Singer, songwriter, and producer Chris Bennett was born in Marshall, Illinois,
home of the world's largest court gavel.
She was inspired by the Dinah Shore show on TV, and entertainment was her world. Chris majored in music and dance at the University of Illinois.
Go Fighting Illini.
And later graduate school at UCLA.
Go Bruins.
It was there that she was picked up the tour with singer Jim Nabors. We North Carolinians know him as Gomer Pyle, playing in Las Vegas, Reno, and Tahoe for many years. That led the touring in Bangkok, Bali, Tokyo, and Berlin, where she met Giorgio Moroder and joined the wildly successful disco band Munich Machine. Bennett wrote the lyrics for the love theme from Midnight Express, which earned her a Grammy nomination in 1979, and that led her back to L.A., producing with Tina Turner, Donna Summer, and Johnny Mathis. Today, she's a Palm Springs resident, and she appears every week at our favorite spot, the Purple Room. Welcome to the show, Chris.
Thank you, Tom. It's a real pleasure to be here with you and George.
Well, Chris, tell our listeners the magic that is the Purple Room. What is that all about? Because that is a space that every modernist fan needs to go to when they visit town.
I agree. It's not just the best club in Palm Springs. I think it's one of the best clubs in the world. It's run by a fellow Illinois guy. His name is Michael Holmes, and he used to run the Empire Room in Chicago, which was a very fancy and well respected club. And so it's not big. It's about 100 seats, and you walk in and it's purple, but it has a great history. It was Sinatra's hang in the day, like in the 60s. And the story goes that one night Sinatra was up there jamming, and Dean Martin jumped on stage, and then Sammy Davis jumped on stage, and some agent said, wow, there's an act. And thus the Rat Pack was born. And all of us out here say it's still the Rat Pack's town. We just live in it. You know, we love the history of that era. And actually, I just performed last night at Melvin's in the historic Ingleside Inn. Did you ever visit there?
Oh, sure. We know Melvin's. Yeah.
I don't sing every week, but on Sunday they have from 3 to 7 the Pro Jam, and he lets me take over the band. And you feel like Sinatra's going to be sitting at the bar. It still has that total mid-century vibe. It's just a great little town, lots going on, and I love it here. I miss my beach in LA a little bit, but if I need to, I can be there in 2 hours. And who knew I was a desert rat? I thought I was a beach bum, but growing up on a farm, I'd never experienced either in Illinois. And I really love it here, and I'll probably be here forever. I do go to Germany every year because of my time with Giorgio and Donna. I speak fluent German, and I play a great club over in Berlin. Have you ever been to Berlin, George?
Yes.
Oh, what a great city. It wasn't so darn cold. I'd consider living there because they love the mature performers over there, and they love jazz, love American jazz. But so anyway, I usually get away for about a 2-week performance schedule over there and come back to my little desert town with no traffic and just happy as can be.
When I was researching Palm Springs, I read that back in the 60s, there were maybe 50 clubs. It was a big club town, and they're almost all gone now.
Yes, I believe one of the reasons for that is the heyday of the movie industry. They had a clause you could only be 2 hours away if you went away. So Palm Springs, that's when all these beautiful mid-century homes got built. And yeah, there was quite a scene out here. We still have a pretty active scene. It kind of gets slow in the summer because it can be terribly hot. One day it was 120. It's like, it's Kuwait. But yes, it was quite a place. And it's having a renaissance. I don't think its charm is going to go away anytime soon. Of course, Modernism Week is huge now. Thousands of people come, and quite an event.
Yeah, we take a little bit of credit for that.
Yeah.
I think you should, Tom. Absolutely. So do you come too in February when you boys both come out?
Oh, yeah.
Goody. We'll get to hang out. And hopefully my gig will still be going on at the Purple Room on Tuesday and Thursday. It's a great gig. It's 4 to 6. There's no cover. It's kind of an older town. We go to bed early. So 4 to 6 is a good time to perform.
That's a rocking good time to get it done right then.
Exactly.
Chris, we're going to hear some of your songs more about jazz, but years ago, you sang the love theme for Midnight Express, which I see on the internet is still racking up millions of hits.
I know. I still get a residual now and then. That's an interesting story because did you see the film Midnight Express?
Yes, way back.
Okay, so you remember the guy, his name was Billy Hayes, and he was smuggling hashish out of Turkey, and he got busted. He was given a life sentence. So I'm working with Giorgio. I'm Donna Summer's background singer. I'm the lead singer on Munich Machine. I'm in my late 20s. I think I've died and gone to heaven, living partly in Munich and partly in America. And it was always be quick with Giorgio. He comes into town and said, I need a lyric tomorrow for this film I'm scoring. I said, well, what's it about? Oh, it's a guy that's smuggling drugs out of Turkey and he's in prison. And he gave me the music. And so I tried to write it from the standpoint of his girlfriend waiting for him. And until your heart is free to fly, I will keep the sun for you. And when I played it for him, he cried. He said, you really captured what that was like for my girlfriend. Anyway, so that's how that came about. And I went in and recorded it, and we got a Grammy nomination. It was heavy stuff. We lost to John Williams for Jaws that year, but oh well.
Oh,
it was
man.
Really nice to be nominated.
This next song you wrote along with Cynthia Tarr. Here's Chris with Shimmy Softly.
Come to me, come to me. Just as the moon sifts its way down, shimmying on the sea. just as the waves lapping around, blurred with the sand and leaf. Much like the wind tossing its way, whispering through the trees. Your presence here, drinking a beer, sets off moon and waves inside of me. Chill setting hair on end, heat trickling down my spine, gasping at teasing wind. You've caught my eye, we wink. Now's the time to swim or sink. Shimmy softly over me, shimmy close but let me see. Hold my hand, press down the rest. Oh yes. Shimmy softly to and fro, I can feel your love in me grow. Moving hard but shimmy and soft, moon on the sea, moving over me. Those panting waves come back for more, never much time between. The moon gets hot, forcing its heat, water must bob and weave. Wind will blow, that's what it does. Soon as it comes, it leaves. But you and I mourn and we sigh, and the moon and the wind blow you back into me. Wind blows hard, but it gets harder. We won't stop this soon. You don't disappoint me ever. All we live for is another moon. Shimmy softly over me, shimmy close but let me see. Hold my hand, press down the rest. Oh yes. Shimmy softly to and fro, I can feel your love in me grow. Moving hard but shimmy and soft, moon on the sea, moving over me. Moon on the sea, moving over me. Shimmy softly, shimmy softly. And those panting waves come back for more. Come back for more. Where you are, come to me, come to me. Shimmy softly.
That's beautiful.
Very elegant, yeah.
Thank
And
you.
the crowd goes wild.
That was a live recording in Berlin. You picked one of my favorite original songs. It was inspired by my many trips. My other favorite place in the world is Tahiti. You guys ever been there?
No.
Oh, it's about early 90s. I was in the recording studio and the guitar player came in all tan. He said, "Oh yeah, I just had a gig in Tahiti." I'm like, "You've got to get me that gig." I was always obsessed with it. And he said, "Oh, the guy that books it lives in the marina." And I had just done my first independent CD, because when I started out in the business in the 70s, you had to have a big record company behind you to release a CD. There was nobody doing their own albums and printing their own. Unfortunately, my daddy had died. My mom and I sold the cottage on the lake, and I recorded my first album. So I got this gig in Tahiti. And have you been to Hawaii? You get a little glimpse of, multiply that by about 20. It's breathtakingly beautiful. The people are beautiful, the music. And so I go every year. This year I played a cool little club, and sometimes I just go and look at fish. But that song was inspired by a trip to paradise. So thank you for playing that. My wonderful songwriting partner, Cynthia Tarr.
Now, when you're in Tahiti, do you practice a lot of the yoga that you do in Palm Springs?
Just on my own. I was a dancer from the time I was 3 years old. And I was inspired by Dinah Shore. I mean, I was a little girl when the Dinah Shore show came on. And my mom said I just stood there mesmerized, and I had to make every costume change with her. And it's like, someday I'm going to have my own television show. I was always a dancer, was a dance major at University of Illinois, grad school at UCLA. And then a friend of mine just dragged me to a yoga class when I turned 30, and I was completely and totally hooked. I've practiced yoga for almost 40 years, taught for almost 38. So I do my own practice every day. I don't go to doctors. I haven't been sick in years. It's really an amazing thing for keeping your body young and strong and healthy. I attended a yoga retreat in Bali and in India. And, yoga is huge now. It was kind of fringe when I started in the 80s, but now
it's everywhere.
Do you do it, George?
Well, I have one position. It's similar to downward dog. It's called lazy dog.
That's okay. All you need is one. Down dog will fix up pretty much anything. Most people don't breathe enough. You only get oxygen into your bloodstream when you take a full, deep breath. Most people are just doing that shallow chest breathing. So anytime you're feeling blue or low energy, some big breaths will lift your spirit. Yeah, let's have a big hot breath.
And it'll help you sing,
Yes.
So in answer to your question, the gentleman that you heard playing sax on that song, his name's Armando Castagnoli, and he's half Tahitian, half Italian, and I love to play with the saxophone. The saxophone is the closest in timbre to the female voice. So I really love to have a sax with me. Used to always alto, but now Rick usually plays tenor, and I'm really falling in love. That's a very sexy sound.
Well, that helps explain why I love saxophone.
Yes, it's close to the female. Isn't it a sexy instrument? It's so beautiful.
Oh, yeah.
I love Stan Getz, and I've been so many great ones. He's my favorite.
Well, this next song was written by Alberto Dominguez. Here's Chris with Perfidio.
Strangers, and we were sweethearts for so long, lovers, until you let your love go wrong. Kiss me, then give your heart to someone new. Darling, this is our last adieu. To you, my heart cries out perfidia, for I found you the love of my life in somebody else's arms. Your eyes are echoing perfidia, forgetful of our promise of love. You're sharing another's charms. With a sad lament, my dreams have faded like a broken melody, while the gods of love look down and laugh at what romantic fools we mortals be. And now I know my love was not for you, and so I take it back with a sigh. Perfidious one, goodbye. love, look down and laugh. What romantic fools we mortals be. And now I know my love was not for you, and so I take it back with a sigh. Perfidious one, goodbye.
Chris, that is really great. It's one of those songs, though, that I've heard forever, but I only heard it as an instrumental. I never heard the words before.
Yes, and if you go to a Mexican restaurant, they'll play it and sing it in Spanish. It's a classic. I love that song. Thank you for playing it. It brought back so many memories. I actually recorded that in Tahiti. I had just gone through a major heartbreak of my 23-year marriage, and I called my sax player in Tahiti. He said, come to Tahiti. I'll introduce you to young boys. And in 48 hours, I was on a plane. And in Tahiti, I was visiting my friend that lived up on a hill looking at 180 degrees. She said, oh, why don't you come house sit for 6 weeks? Oh, and there's a recording studio right next door. Like, oh, my God, there is a God.
I need friends like that.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, come to Tahiti, boys. 5 women for every man. They're gorgeous too. Oh. Anyway, so
let me tell my wife.
I called my late great piano player producer Eric Doney. I said, bring every Broken Heart song you've ever loved with you, and we recorded. It was the most wonderful recording experience of my life. But we'd get up in the morning and we'd walk over there and put a flower behind our ears. Oh, another rough day in the studio. And he had found that song for me. I think it's one of the most beautiful melodies.
Who needs therapy, really? Just call your sax player.
Yeah, that's right.
Kind of the truth. You can never have too much sax on stage, guys.
Chris, thanks so much for joining us. This has been delightful.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me, boys. It was a pleasure. And we'll do it again, I hope.
You can listen to Chris's music at chrisbennett.com. That's ChrisBennett.com. Thanks for listening. U.S. Modernist Radio is underwritten by June Goldfinger and Jeff Taylor, sponsors of Circle, Square, Triangle, a traveling exhibition on the architecture of Myron Goldfinger. And by Diane Bald and the Budman family, restoring significant architecture in Toronto, Los Angeles, Malibu, and Palm Springs. Okay, Tom, please show our guest to the nearest exit, please.
Everyone, please stay calm, move slowly towards the doors, and visit usmodernist.org's massive archives to listen to past shows, discover documentation of 23,000 significant modernist houses, and access 4.3 million pages of classic 20th century architecture magazines. U.S. Modernist Radio is produced by Soundtracks Recording Studios in Raleigh, North Carolina. Our theme song is performed by George Smart and Robinson Earl, with guest research by Kelly Policelli and Ryan Van Sickle. U.S. Modernist Radio is a production of Modernist Archive Incorporated, a nonprofit educational archive for the documentation, preservation, and promotion of modernist residential design. I'm Tom Guild. George and I will be back soon with another coastal dream house edition of U.S. Modernist Radio.